right, everyone. Welcome back for another Joint School session, another dose of Joint School. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you especially, John Turiano, for joining us for this interview.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be invited.
No, it really is a pleasure. Now, and today, everyone, we've got a bit of a special session because John is here with us to talk about his experience, his quite recent experience of undergoing bilateral knee replacement surgery. And it's a bit of a more unusual way of doing things. And I look forward to hearing a bit more about what that's been like and where you're up to so far. But before we begin, John, can you tell us a little bit tell us all about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York, and I've had a history of knee problems dating back to high school. I remember playing hockey. I would come home when the knees would ache. I'd be putting Bengay on them. I had my first injury shortly after my senior year in high school, my first surgery shortly after that on the right knee. The left knee followed about a year or two after that. So I had basically undiagnosed, I had surgery for torn meniscus,
right,
but I never had the torn ACLs diagnosed properly until maybe 15 years later. So then eventually wore a brace, continued to play sports until the arthritis got so bad I couldn't do that anymore. So I think I've known all my life that this day was coming, total knee replacement. Just been putting it off as long as I could. And I just decided now was the time to do it. One of my knees really flared up last winter. Usually they would swell and then get better in a week or so. This time it lasted for about 2 or 3 months. And so I decided the time was to do it. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I was going to have a single knee done. And then COVID came along, that got canceled. In the meantime, I hooked up with a guy that had a double knee replacement done about a year or two ago. And he hooked me up with a doctor here that agreed to do both of them for me.
Okay, interesting. And so you're now about 5 weeks on from having both sets of new knees.
Yep.
And so how have these first few weeks been?
Well, the first 2 weeks were hell on earth. It was really tough for me. Yeah. I was anemic, and I had severe constipation, so I was very weak. Yeah. And then I turned a corner after that, and it's going very well now. I don't regret for a minute having the 2 of them done because my main reasoning was I didn't want to do the whole thing twice. Yeah. So I think it's worked out very well for me, but initially it was pretty difficult.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear it's going better now. And yeah, it's certainly worth flagging that the bilateral approach, having 2 done at the same time, is something that won't be available everywhere and certainly won't be appropriate for everyone. Right. But in terms of your own experience, so where you are now, is there anything in particular that what would be your message for someone who is now getting ready for a knee replacement, be it on one side or on both sides? Right. In terms of especially in terms of overcoming those early challenges of recovery. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough go initially. I spent a couple nights in the hospital and I came home. I think the first 2 or 3 nights were pretty painful. So I used a lot of the pain meds and ice to manage the pain. And then it slowly gets better after that. But it's a long process. So I would say until maybe it's actually compounded by having the 2 knees done too, because then you don't have a good knee to stand on. Everything is a little more difficult. Yeah. But I'd say after about the 3rd or 4th week, I started turning a corner, and like now I'm walking on it pretty much without a cane if I want to, and just working on strengthening the muscles, getting it back to where it was.
Yeah. And I can see an exercise bike there in the background.
Yep. Yeah, the doctor that operated on my knees, he's big on riding a bike. He actually wants you on it for 5 minutes or so every couple hours because as you know, the big thing is getting that range of motion back.
Absolutely.
So that takes a lot of work to get that back. It starts out with very little and it just progresses along after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like cycling is really good form of low impact exercise. You're not putting that much weight through it, but you're going through the motions. But what I will flag just for everyone watching this is, of course, always check in with your surgeon and your therapist about an exercise plan that's appropriate for you, because it may not be appropriate for everyone to use the exercise bike quite that often at that stage, but certainly, generally speaking, an exercise bike is a very good example of a low impact exercise that may be appropriate and can well play an important role at this stage.
Right. And so I think especially for the bilateral, it's very important to do that. Although I do know a friend of mine that I found out 2 weeks before I was going to have my surgery. I found out that a friend of mine's sister-in-law was going to have a bilateral done in Albany, New York.
Okay.
So we've been commiserating by texting a lot.
Hey,
and comparing notes. So it's been very helpful to go through with someone else.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've certainly seen and heard from people. And it's a little bit what we're trying to achieve with these videos, to establish a bit of a sense of community. But certainly if you can find a sort of recovery buddy or pal or someone who's kind of, you know, on the same journey as you, or perhaps a little bit ahead of you in the journey, or behind that you can share some experiences, that can definitely be quite reassuring and helpful.
It is. It makes it so much easier because so many questions are going to come up, especially with the two knees, because I have two knees to compare, and they're not the same. One's lagging behind the other.
Okay.
But you have all kinds of questions, so I can ask my friend, and we have had a very similar experience. It's amazing.
Okay. And so what are the kind of most common questions, if you will, that you've been sharing with each other?
Well, one is when you try to get the motion back in the knees, mine were different. My right knee was a lot more stubborn trying to get the bend back.
Okay.
But more flexible trying to straighten it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had questions. One was more swollen than the other. So things like that. One more painful than the other. They were just basically different. Okay. And she had a very similar experience as well too. So even though you kind of expect them to heal the same, but they don't. They're very different.
Yeah, interesting.
But that was helpful.
Yeah. But by and large, things are now progressing, and you're making good headway in terms of comfort improving, movement improving. What about sleep? Because I know we often get questions about sleep, and these first few weeks after surgery, how have you found that?
Well, that's a big issue, yeah. And I knew going into this that sleep was going to be a problem. Mm. It's very difficult sleeping for periods longer. I find maybe than a couple hours, because knees get uncomfortable. They need to be moved. So I wake up frequently. I have to shift positions, move them, sometimes get up. And I think that's going to last for a long time. I know a friend of mine had a single knee done. 2 friends of mine did too. They mentioned that as well. That maybe months before you get a really, really good sound night's sleep.
Wow. Okay. But is there a noticeable improvement from your point of view with sleep as yet, or is it are you able to feel rested during the day, or is it still feeling quite tough going?
Well, every day I get stronger, and the sleeping does get better because it's more comfortable at night. It's not as painful. It's just a matter of a little discomfort. You wake up, you got to shift position. You don't want to keep your knees straight all night. You want to bend them a little bit, straighten them a little bit, keep on shifting positions. And as you progress along, you can do more things like that at night. Yeah. Initially, it's more difficult.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of it's always quite difficult to quantify, I guess, and it's always so personal. But from your point of view, in terms of levels of discomfort and pain in your knees now, how has that changed in these first few weeks? And is that something that is different from knee to knee?
Well, the areas of pain differ from knee to knee, but the amount of pain I think is because I have 2 kinds of pain. I have a steady pain, and like an ache, and then different pains that pop up as I think muscles come back and things, and you're doing your PT, different pains pop up. But the ache is about the same in both knees, and it's very manageable. It's just there most of the time. I'm waiting for the day that goes away. hopefully in the next week or 2, I'm hoping.
Yeah. For sure. And so, and you mentioned also that so in sort of the lead up to your surgery that there was another friend who you could ask, questions about what it was like to have the bilateral, the knee replacement.
Right.
And what were the things that, like, from those conversations that you look back on and be like, actually, that was really helpful to know, or that really helped into either before surgery or in terms of where you are now?
Yeah. Well, he got me super motivated because he's a very high energy guy,
Yeah.
big time hiker, and he just so much into it. He said, "This is the right decision." He really pumped me up to do this. I wanted to do it anyway, but he just really pumped me up. Actually, that's his bike. He gave me his bike. He gave me a little pedaler. He gave me all kinds of advice. Very, very helpful.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to hear. So, again, highlighting like the positive impact that some good support, some good encouragement, some good motivation can have.
Well, it means so much. Yeah, it does.
And you're an author, John.
I am. Mm-hmm. Yep. Recent, very recent author.
Yeah, interesting.
I retired. I retired almost about 4 years ago this summer it'll be, and I got an opportunity to really concentrate on my writing at that time. And since then, I've published 2 books. It's been a huge learning experience for me. I always thought the hardest thing in my life would be writing a book, and it was very difficult. But now I'm finding out the hardest thing is actually marketing the book, getting it in people's hands. Yeah. It's just as difficult. But it's been quite an experience.
Right, well, good for you. And is writing something that, because I know from that many people find it helpful to sort of keep a recovery journal, or just to generally use writing as one of the many possible tools to help manage the situation, manage pain, and perhaps a bit of boredom and other things that can arise on the journey that you're on.
Yeah, well, I do keep a journal. Yeah. Basically on my phone, I've been keeping notes because it's very helpful from day to day to see the progress, what worked, what didn't work, trying out different things. Comparing with my friend.
But absolutely. And I think as we've highlighted in other joint school sessions, there's a real value in speaking with others and sharing experience, but there's also a bit of a danger in comparing yourself too closely to others. So those, you kind of need to keep both of those positions at the same time in a way, and always remember that there's only one of you, and everyone is going to have their own unique experience of a knee replacement journey or a bilateral knee replacement journey, but certainly that there is a value in sharing experiences.
Yeah, and that's true too, because it can be frustrating comparing yourself to someone else if you're lagging behind. For me, that just motivated me. So it was helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's probably worth highlighting as well for people who may be watching this video who are themselves considering having bilateral knee replacements, or who maybe have had them and are on the road to recover, so to speak. Is often if you're looking at resources online and you're trying to find sort of estimated timelines for when to get back to certain activities, it's likely to expect that to take a bit longer with bilateral knee replacement as opposed to having it on one side. So that's certainly worth bearing in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everyone's different, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Even your 2 knees are different. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, indeed. And so what are you setting your sights on as a sort of the next stage of your recovery?
I would like to get to the point where my knees are less painful than they were before the surgery. Mm-hmm. So before the surgery, I didn't have a lot of pain. I had a lot of pain if I did stuff like hiking, standing was very painful for me for prolonged periods of time. So I'm looking for that point in time now where my knees will actually be better than they were before the surgery. So they're getting there, I think. But I'm looking forward to that day.
And it sounds like you're doing all the right things, keeping active, regular low impact exercise, following the advice from your doctor, and also checking in with others who've had a similar experience or who are having a similar experience.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, is there anything else you would like to say to our viewers who may be considering having a bilateral knee replacement, or just generally, or sort of somewhere on the road to recovery from a knee replacement?
It's a big decision, and I think the bilateral makes it double. But for me, it was the right decision. I really, when I got Dr. Myers to agree to do the 2 knees, it removed a load from my shoulders. I was so pleased, even though I didn't really want to do the surgery. I didn't want to do it twice. So I'm so glad I'm going to be done with it after this. I'm so motivated to get it done and be done with it. So
Yeah.
for me, it was the right decision.
Yeah. Well, hey, good for you, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, and all the best with your with your next goals and with your recovery and with your books.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, indeed.
I enjoyed our talk.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I'll make sure we pop a link to your YouTube channel where people can see trailers for your books as well under here. So
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You take care now, John. All the best.
Thank you. That was best to you.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching. As ever, let us know what you think about the video. If this has sparked any new questions, let us know, or you have a suggestion for a topic, we'll dig into it. Keep up the good work, everyone, and take care.